Hello there, my name is Elise, and in this video we're going to talk about rendering inside of Nomad Sculpt. Nomad uses a rendering engine similar to a video game rendering engine, so you don't actually need another app or piece of software to export your sculpts to and post them online to show them off. We're going to do this in 3 parts to make it easier to follow and so we can focus on specific aspects. In this episode, we're going to go over step number 1, and that's going to be materials and shading. Step number 2 will be lighting our scene, and step number 3 is going to be post-processing. Now, before we begin, just a quick overview on how Nomad works. Nomad uses a PBR engine, which means a physically based rendering engine. It tries to mimic how materials work in real life using a metallic, roughness, and a color value. The roughness and metallic values range from 0 to 1. For the metallic values, we keep it simple. If it's metal, set it to 1. If it's not metal, then set it to 0. You can use any other value to have some artistic control on the output, but you should always almost aim for 1 or 0 for metallic values. Roughness is where all the subtleties lie. This defines the quality of the surface on a microscopic level. A value of 0 is going to be a mirror-like finish, and a value of 1 is going to be a very coarse texture like sandpaper, diffusing the light that bounces on it. This is the value you have to play with the most to get the exact look you want. A mirror finish is always going to be 1, but beyond that, all values are trial and error. Okay, so let's jump into a real example and see how this works. In this example, I imported a model that I did based on a design by Helgeson Art. There will be a link to his ArtStation page in the description, and you should have a look at his work if you don't know him. It has a bunch of different materials, some painting already applied, so we can see how to change the metallic and roughness values on an existing model with shading, with painting applied, and how to create new materials from scratch. This is not a painting tutorial since we're focused on materials, even if there's some overlap. So let's switch to our paintbrush and let's open the paint menu and pin it down so it's always there. We're going to start off really simple and start with the metallic pieces. Let's select our chain and set our metallic value to 1. We'll give it a low value in roughness, so it's a bit of a brushed metal. For the color, I'm going to pick a light blue to go for a silver-like material. To apply the material to our model, we have the option to either paint it down with the brush or hit the Paint All button. We simply do the same for the matching buttons on the coat. To break off the surface a bit, we're going to pick an alpha. That's a black and white image that masks the tip of your brush and allows you to paint with different shapes. I'm going to use the one with the multiple stripes, but you can import alphas that you made or downloaded online. I would get one with some nice scratch patterns, but for this demo, this one will do fine. If we start to paint straight away, it won't change anything since we're painting in the same values. So let's increase our roughness values a little bit and paint in some scratches. We just want to break off the surface a bit. The resolution and the level of quality of your brushwork depends on the resolution of your model. So if you want to get more resolution in your texture, you have to bump up the poly count. Now let's do the earring, and it's pretty much the same thing, but this time we're going to go for a gold color with a very reflective surface, so less roughness. Jumping to the buttons, this time we have multiple sets of different buttons grouped together in a single model. a set is going to be made of bronze, while the other is going to be more pearl-like. So we're not going to use the paint all button and manually paint each pair. This time I'm going for a much darker, rougher material for the bronze buttons. For the other buttons, we're going to set the metallic value to 0 and give it a glossy surface with a low roughness value. To keep track of everything, I'm going to hide the parts that are already done. And I'm going to speed things up a bit because it's the same thing over and over again. Just pick a color, set the values, and paint. Now that we've reached the hair, we're going to do the same trick that we did for the metallic parts and use the alpha to break off the surface. But instead of making cross-hatch random patterns, this time we're going to try and follow the hair pattern. We want to lightly break off the surface a bit. I want a bit subtle, but with some time and different alphas, you can push the colors and the values to give more depth to the hair. Now jumping to the face and a part of the model that already has color values. So if we were to hit paint all or paint the face now, we would ruin the work we've already done. But if we uncheck the color option, now we can work on only the roughness and metallic values. So if you want to alter just one aspect of your material after the fact, you can. Just uncheck the thing you want to preserve. Now we can hit paint all and keep the colors intact. Skin is again a great place to break off the surface details with alphas. And playing with the roughness values, you could paint some parts of the face to be more or less oily. Now with the model entirely done, I'm going to show you a little trick to make the eyes a little bit more interesting and show you that there are even more shading options. Let's add 2 spheres above the eyes to begin. Now let's paint them pure black and make them highly reflective. Now that we have a very spooky look, let's jump to the Material tab. Here you can change the material type. This is where you go if you want to make transparent, emissive, or refractive materials. Experiment with each option and see what it gives you. Here I find the additive option gives me the effect I want. It's meant to make an emissive-like material, but since we painted the eyes black, there's nothing to emit light. But playing with the opacity, it does give us a great highlight in the eyes. And that's what we want. We want to give some life back into the eyes. And that's going to wrap things up for this one. In the next one, we'll talk about lights, and I'll see you then.